Hot water pours into her rubber gloves, but Tamika no longer feels the warmth. Her hands know their job. Plate, rinse, stack. Plate, rinse, stack. She stands in the small backyard of an upscale restaurant, and the steam from the industrial dishwasher mixes with the humid Seoul air. Tamika is 32 years old. She's tall and thin, her smooth black skin glistening with sweat. Her straight black hair is pulled tightly into a bun at the back of her head to keep it out of the way. She's wearing a blue dishwasher uniform, completely wet, and an apron that's long overdue for a change. She dreams of silence. Not the kind where all you can hear is the hum of the machines and the hum of the ventilation system, but real silence. A silence where you can just sit and think about nothing. But this morning, everything has been going wrong. Disposal broke. Then a new batch of dishes arrived, and they all needed to be washed by hand. And now screaming was coming from the kitchen. The chef always screams, but today his voice sounded different. Frightened. Tamika turns off the water and listens. The screaming continues, joined by the sound of a fallen pot. She wipes her hands on her damp apron and peers through the half-open kitchen door. A man lies on the kitchen floor. It's a pastry chef, a Korean man of about 40. He's pale, much paler than his white jacket. Cooks fuss around him, and someone splashes water in his face. The chef rushes between the stove and the phone. He's trying to call someone, but no one's answering. The maitre d', a small, nervous man in a black suit, wrings his hands. He glances at his watch, then at the dining room door, from which the clatter of dishes and the voices of guests can be heard. The maitre d's gaze falls on Tamika. She's simply standing in the doorway, wet and tired. "You!" he shouts, pointing his finger at her. "Can you cook?" Tamika looks at him, then at the prostrate pastry chef. She realizes there's no one else here right now. The head chef is busy with the hot dishes. The assistants don't know the recipes. "I'm washing the dishes," she says quietly. "I know who you are," the maitre d' interrupts. He's already running up to her and grabbing her hand. "There's a guest there. He's waiting for dessert." "We don't have dessert. Make something, anything. Just something to put on the plate." He pulls her toward the pastry counter, littered with flour and leftover dough. The pastry chef is already being carried away. The silence in the kitchen is deafening. Everyone is looking at her. Tamika looks at the empty table. She's not a pastry chef. She's not even a cook. She's just a woman washing dishes in a foreign country. Tamika's hands are shaking, but she pulls herself together. She looks around the table. Remnants of puff pastry, a little buttercream in a bowl, local fruit brought in today for decoration, persimmons, pears, some berries. She remembers her grandmother's house, the small kitchen in North Carolina, the smell of cinnamon, and the warmth of the oven. Grandma never used recipes. She took what she had and made it delicious. Tamika rolls out the dough. Her hands remember this movement from childhood, although she hasn't done it in many years. She cuts the dough into squares, places a sliced pear and a drop of cream inside. She pinches the edges, just like her grandmother taught her, sloppily, like a homemade pastry. She places the baking sheet in the oven. While the pies bake, she quickly slices the persimmons into thin slices. No complicated sauce, no chocolate, just the fruit, a drop of honey from the pantry, and a mint leaf for color. When the pies are ready, she places them on a white plate. She places slices of persimmon next to them. She drizzles honey on top. It looks simple, almost too simple for this place. She hands the plate to the waiter. He looks at it doubtfully, but takes it into the dining room. Tamika exhales and returns to her dishes. She thinks it was just a strange dream. Music plays softly in the restaurant. A man sits at a table by the window. He's 35 years old, and his name is L. He's large, nearly 90 kilograms. But in his white suit, he looks stately, not heavy. His black hair is slicked back. He was expecting something special from dinner today. He wasn't sure what exactly. A meeting, a conversation, maybe just some peace and quiet. But dinner ended, and the desired feeling hadn't arrived. All that remained was coffee and the anticipation of dessert. Lee looks out the window at the evening city. People are rushing about. Cars are stuck in traffic jams. He doesn't need to rush. He has time. The waiter places a plate in front of him. Lee's gaze shifts from the street to the table. He expects to see a towering chocolate structure, mirror-like glaze, and gold dust. This is always the case in this restaurant. On the plate are 2 simple pies, slices of persimmon, and a drop of honey. It looks like it was made by a grandmother in a country kitchen, not by a team of expensive pastry chefs. Lee frowns. Lee puts a slice of persimmon drizzled with honey in her mouth. Sweet, but not cloying. Fresh. He freezes. The taste evokes something distant. He can't quite place it. Maybe childhood. Maybe a home he's long gone. Maybe the feeling of being safe. Lee closes his eyes for a second. He's tried the best desserts in the city. French, Italian, Japanese, but he's never tried anything like this. It's not about skill. It's about something else. About the fact that someone put themselves into this pie. He finishes every last crumb. The honey on the plate is swept up with a piece of dough. The empty plate sits before him, and he can still taste it in his mouth. Lee raises his hand. The waiter runs over instantly. "Call the person who prepared the dessert," Elle says calmly. The waiter turns pale. He knows it's Tamika from the sink. He fidgets. "Guest, are we having trouble with dessert? Can I call the chef?" "Call the person who cooked," Elle repeats. The tone doesn't change, but the waiter runs to the kitchen faster than before. There's panic in the kitchen. The maitre d' clutches his head. He runs to the backyard, where Tamika is washing dishes again. "Get rid of it! Go into the gym!" he shouts. Tamika looks at her wet hands, at her stained apron. "I can't go out like this." "You can! Go quickly!" She wipes her hands with a rag. She takes off her apron and throws it on a drawer. She adjusts her bun. She follows the maitre d' through the kitchen, through the double doors, and into the dining room. The room is quiet. Several guests turn around. Tamika feels their gaze on her wet blue uniform, on her tired face. She stops at a table dressed in white. Lee looks up and sees her. A tall, thin woman with smooth, dark skin stands before him. She's wearing a blue uniform, damp as if she'd just wrung out laundry. Her black hair is pulled back into a simple bun. Her lips are full, pressed together in tension. She looks at him with a mixture of defiance and fear. Lee is silent. He expected to see a chef in a tall hat, or a pastry chef with a perfectly manicured face. But instead, he sees the woman who was just standing at the sink. There's more than just interest in his eyes. Something else. Something Tamika can't quite place. He's not looking at her like a guest might look at a waitress. He's looking at her as if he's trying to find the answer to a question that's just popped into his head. "Did you make dessert?" he asks. The voice is low and calm. No accent, although English is clearly not his native language. Tamika nods. "Yes. What was that?" asks Elle. Tamika looks at him. At the white suit, at the expensive watch on his wrist, at his calm face. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know the name of what she did. She shrugs. "It's just a pie. My grandmother used to bake one like that when I was little." Lee nods, his eyes never leaving hers. "Where's your grandmother?" "She died. A long time ago." Silence. Tamika thinks he's about to say something about the quality of the food, or call the manager. But Elle looks at the empty plate, then back at her. "I want more." Tamika blinks. She looks at the maitre d', who is standing behind her, shaking slightly. "We don't have any more dough," she says honestly. "I used the leftovers." Lee takes out his wallet. He places several bills on the table, without counting them. "Tomorrow. I'll come tomorrow. Prepare the same for me." It's not a question. It's not a request. It's simply a fact he states. He gets up from the table, straightens his jacket, and leaves. The white suit disappears through the door. Tamika stands in the middle of the room. Everyone is looking at her. The next morning, Tamika arrives at work at 6 o'clock, as usual. She opens the service door and finds the hall already lit up. That's weird. The restaurant opens at 12. She peers into the room and sees him. Lee is sitting at the same table by the window. He's wearing a different suit, also light-colored. A cup of coffee sits in front of him, brought personally by the maitre d'. Tamika quickly walks into the kitchen. Her heart is beating faster than it should. She puts on her uniform, wraps her hair, and goes to the pastry counter. Today, she's been given the job here. No one mentions the dishes. She prepares the dough in the morning, waits for it to rise, cuts fruit, thinks about her grandmother. At precisely 12 o'clock, when the restaurant opens to customers, Lee is already inside. He doesn't look at the menu. When the waiter approaches, he says only 2 words. "Yesterday's dessert." Tamika cooks for him personally. She brings out the plate herself. She places it in front of him. He looks at the food, then at her. "Thank you, Tamika." He remembered her name. By lunchtime, the entire kitchen is buzzing. The cooks are whispering over their pots. The chef, who was yelling at everyone yesterday, is quiet today. "Do you know who this is?" the assistant chef whispers to the sushi chef. "I know. It's Li. One of those Li. From which ones? One of those about whom it's better not to know?" Tamika cuts apples and pretends not to hear, but she hears everything. The chef approaches her. He is a head shorter than her, but he looks at her sternly. "Stay away from the dining room. Give your plate to the waiter and sit here. Understood? Tamika nods. She doesn't ask why. She understands. This man in a white suit is no ordinary guest. Such guests don't sit in restaurants from morning until night just for the food. But when she looks into the hall, through the small window in the door, she sees Elle sitting alone. He's reading a newspaper, drinking coffee, waiting. And she feels that today he will again eat every last crumb. And tomorrow he will come again, because there is something in her simple pies that is missing in his entire big and important life. She doesn't know if this is good or bad, but her hands are already kneading the dough again, just in case. A week passes. Lee comes every day. He appears promptly at 12 when the restaurant opens its doors. Sometimes he sits until 3, sometimes until evening. He no longer looks at the menu. The white sheet with the list of dishes still lies closed on the edge of the table. He drinks coffee, reads newspapers, answers calls with short phrases, and waits. When the waiter passes by with a tray, Lee watches him go. But he's not looking at the food. He's looking at the door leading to the kitchen. He's waiting for the moment when his dessert plate will emerge. Tamika feels his presence. Even when she's in the kitchen, behind closed doors, she knows he's there. The air changes. The silence rings differently. She cooks the same thing for him every time. But each time it's different. Today the pear is sweeter. Tomorrow the dough is thinner. She can't explain why she changes the recipe. Her hands just know. Lee notices these changes. He doesn't say it, but Tamika can see it in his eyes. He savors every bite, as if trying to remember this moment forever. For her, it's no longer just work. For him, it's no longer just food. It's a ritual. Theirs, shared, even though they haven't exchanged more than 10 sentences. The chef gave clear instructions. Plates were to be passed only through the waiter. Tamika was not to go out into the dining room. This rule was for her own safety, he said. But today, Tamika breaks this rule. She sees the waiter busy with a large table. The dessert plate sits on the counter, cooling. Lee waits. She glances at the door to the dining room, then at the plate. She picks it up and goes. The room is quiet, only soft music and the clink of forks. Lee looks up when he sees her. There's no surprise on his face, more like satisfaction, as if he knew she'd come. Tamika places the plate on the table. Their fingers almost touch the porcelain. She feels the warmth of his hand right next to hers. "Thank you," says Elle. He pronounces it in English, with a slight, barely noticeable accent hidden in the S sound. This simple word sounds different on his lips than on others. Tamika nods. She wants to leave, but her legs won't obey her. She stands next to his desk for a few seconds longer than necessary. Lee looks up at her. His gaze lacks the coldness she's noticed in other important guests. There's only calm attention. She goes into the kitchen. Her heart is beating somewhere in her throat. The next day, she brings out dessert herself again. The chef is busy on the line and doesn't see. Or if he does, he's silent. Lee is waiting for her. Today he's wearing a dark gray suit, but it still looks expensive and sleek. His hair is neatly combed back. She puts down the plate. He doesn't look at the food. He looks at her. "I didn't ask your name," he says. Tamika freezes. Yesterday he said, "Thank you." Today, he wants to know her name. She feels a tightening inside. "Tamika," she answers. Her voice sounds quiet. She clears her throat. "Tamika," Lee repeats, slowly, as if savoring each syllable. He nods. He doesn't thank, doesn't smile. He simply nods, as if committing something very important to memory. As if he's storing this name in the most secure compartment of his memory. "Tamika," he repeats again, this time to himself. She steps away from the table. Her back is straight, her steps even, but inside, everything is trembling. She never imagined that her simple name could sound like this when spoken by an unfamiliar man in a white suit. That evening, Elle is sitting in a different restaurant. It's expensive, fashionable, and overlooks the river. In front of him is a dessert from a famous pastry chef, an intricate construction of mousse, glaze, and gold leaf. Lee takes a spoon and tries it. Empty. He tastes the sweetness. He tastes the texture. He tastes the craftsmanship, but he doesn't taste anything inside. It's just food, a collection of ingredients, put together according to the rules. He puts down his spoon. A plate of simple pies and persimmon slices appears before his eyes. He remembers the crunch of the dough, the melting of the pear, the honey mixing with the fruit's juice. Lee realizes that other desserts no longer have any taste for him, at all. They are like paper, like emptiness. He tries 3 more places this week. They're all the same. Perfect, beautiful, dead. He only wants her dessert, only what comes out of her hands. He doesn't know why this is so. He just knows that it is a fact. The next morning, he is again sitting in the restaurant by the window and waiting. It's Friday, and Elle arrives later than usual. It's already evening. The restaurant is full. Tamika finishes her shift in an hour. She's tired, her back hurts, her hands smell of flour and lemon. The maitre d' runs into the kitchen. His face is pale, his hands are shaking. Tamika, a guest is asking for you. I know, I already gave away dessert. No, he's asking you personally. Go out. She wipes her hands and goes out into the dining room. Lee is sitting at his table, but today he's not alone. Standing in front of him is the restaurant manager, whom Tamika had only met once before, when she applied for the job. The manager smiles, too widely, too nervously. Tamika, Mr. L made us an offer, he says. He wants you to make a dessert especially for him. Personally, off the menu. Lee looks at her. Tomorrow. The restaurant is closed to customers. I want you to cook just for me. I'll pay. He names the amount. Tamika can't believe her ears. It's as much as she earns in 3 months. For one evening. For one dessert. She looks at the manager. He nods. He nods frequently, like a bobblehead. Tamika hesitates. I'll think about it. Lee nods. Tomorrow at 8. I'll be waiting. He gets up and leaves. There are no questions. He hears no objections. The next day, the restaurant is quiet. The lights are on only in the dining room and kitchen. All the staff are gone. Tamika stands alone at the pastry counter. In the hall, at his table, sits L. He is wearing a simple sweater, not a suit. His hair is a little disheveled. He looks in her direction through the open door. Tamika feels his gaze with every cell of her skin. She prepares dough, cuts fruit, whips cream. Routine movements she's done 1,000 times. But today, every movement is different. She knows he's watching, without looking away. Watching her hands, her back, the way she straightens a stray strand of hair. This isn't just a test. It's something personal. He wants to see how what he eats is created. He wants to be there for that moment. Tamika places the dessert on a tray. She goes out into the hall. She places the plate in front of him. I watched you cook, says Lee. It's beautiful. She doesn't know what to answer. She just stands next to him while he eats. Lee finishes her dessert, slowly savoring every bite. Tamika stands at the next table, unsure if she can leave. You're not from around here, says Elle. It's not a question. No, Tamika answers. I'm from America. How did you end up here in Korea? Tamika is silent for a few seconds. She doesn't like this question, but for some reason today, she wants to answer honestly. I just left. I wanted to see something different, not sit in one place. And what did you see? Washing dishes. She smiles. And the inside of expensive restaurants. Lee looks at her carefully. What about your family? Husband, children? No, nobody. Brief, harsh, but without malice. Just a fact. Lee nods. He doesn't ask any more questions. He just sits and looks at her. And Tamika suddenly realizes she doesn't want to leave. They are silent. A minute, 2, 5. The living room is quiet. Only the hum of the refrigerators in the kitchen and the distant sounds of the city outside the window. Tamika stands leaning against the wall. Lee sits at the table, turned toward her. The silence isn't heavy. It doesn't oppress. It's like a blanket you can wrap yourself in. Tamika hasn't felt so comfortable with a stranger in a long time. Lee is silent too. He doesn't try to fill the silence with empty words. He's simply here, nearby. Tamika looks at his hands, large, lying calmly on the table. No rings, no watch, just hands. She thinks about how this man comes here every day just for her dessert, for her presence. It's both frightening and alluring. Lee looks up. He meets her gaze and says nothing. He just looks. The silence continues, and so much is said in it that words are no longer needed. Tamika is the first to break the silence. She sits down at the table across from him. This is a violation of all the rules. A guest and a dishwasher don't sit at the same table, but right now, there's no one here to see it. Why do you like my food? She asks. Lee thinks. He chooses his words. There's something real about her. She's not trying to be pretty. She just is. Tamika nods. That's because I'm not a pastry chef. I don't know how to do complicated things. I do it the way my grandmother taught me. Tell me about her. And Tamika talks. About the little house. About her grandmother, who got up at 4 in the morning to bake pies. About the smell of cinnamon throughout the house. About how they sat on the porch and ate warm buns with milk. Lee listens, doesn't interrupt. I don't have such memories, he says when she finishes. Tamika looks at him. There's no self-pity in his eyes, just a statement of fact. My mother didn't cook. We had cooks. I don't remember the smell of the house. She doesn't know what to say. She just sits and looks at him. And she understands why he comes here every day. He's looking for something he never had. Lee gets up from the table. He goes to the window and looks out at the city at night. Then he turns to Tamika. Leave that job, he says. Don't wash the dishes. I'll make a deal with the manager. You'll work only as a pastry chef, full-time, good salary. Tamika is silent. The proposal sounds like a dream. To stop ruining her hands with hot water, to stop bending her back over the sink, to do only what she loves. And you will cook for me, adds Elle. Not every day, but sometimes. When I ask, she looks at him, at his back in a simple sweater, at his profile in the light of the street lamps. No, she says quietly. Lee turns around. There's surprise in his eyes. For the first time. Why? Tamika stands up and adjusts her apron. If I cook for you to order, it will become work, a duty. But now I cook because I want to, because you come and wait. If this becomes work, I will lose something important in myself. Lee looks at her for a long time, a very long time. Then he nods. I understand. The next morning, Tamika is summoned by the manager. She stands in his small, stuffy office. The manager sits at his desk and doesn't offer her a seat. You refused, Mr. L, he says. Yes. The manager sighs and rubs his face with his hands. Tamika, you don't understand. This man, he's not someone you can refuse. I didn't do anything wrong. I just said no. That's not how things work here. The manager stands up. He comes closer to her. If he gets upset, we could all lose our jobs. Not just you. Everyone. Me, the cooks, the waiters. Tamika looks at him, sees fear in his eyes. Real fear. I didn't want to set anyone up. Then think again. Don't anger him. He's used to getting what he wants. And he wants your dessert. And it seems like more than just dessert. The manager turns to the window. Go to work. But mark my words. Tamika leaves the office. Her legs are weak. She goes to the kitchen, puts on gloves, and stands at the sink. Hot water pours over her hands, but she feels no warmth. She's trapped. If she cooks for him on demand, she'll lose herself. If she stops cooking, other people will suffer. And he'll come every day and look at her with those calm eyes. Tamika washes plate after plate and thinks about only one thing. What to do tomorrow when he sits down at his table by the window again. Hot water pours onto her hands, but Tamika has long since stopped noticing it. She looks out the small window in the kitchen door. There, in the living room, Elle is sitting at his table. In front of him is a cup of coffee and an open newspaper. He's not eating. He's just sitting there. Today is Tuesday. He came on Monday. And on Sunday, too, even though the restaurant was only open until lunch. Now he doesn't come for dessert. He eats it in 10 minutes. And then he sits for an hour, 2, 3, reads the newspaper, looks at his phone. Sometimes he just looks out the window. Tamika knows he senses her presence through the wall, just as she senses his. The chef no longer yells at her. He even tries not to look in her direction. The other chefs whisper among themselves, but fall silent when she passes by. Tamika has become a stranger to them, one of their own, but a stranger, because she's the one for whom the important guest sits in the room for hours. Lee folds the newspaper. She lifts her head and looks straight at the kitchen door, straight at the window where she stands. Tamika recoils, as if she's been caught doing something embarrassing. Her heart is pounding. She turns to the sink and pretends to be very busy with the dishes. When she looks out the window again, Lee has already left. An empty cup and a folded newspaper remain on the table. Tamika begins to notice things she hadn't noticed before. When Elle is in the room, the other patrons act differently. They don't look in his direction, at all, as if he's not there. But Tamika sees how men avert their eyes as they pass his table, how women quiet down and stare at their plates. The waiters are becoming overly polite, not the usual politeness that the rules demand. Different, tense. When they bring him coffee, they set the cup down so carefully, as if they're afraid of breaking not the cup, but themselves. One day, Tamika sees a young waiter, a new one, approach Elle's table and ask, smiling. He asks too loudly if everything is okay. Elle looks up at him. He's silent for a second. Then he nods. The waiter turns pale and leaves so quickly, he almost drops his tray. Tamika stands by the door with a plate in her hands. She looks at Elle. He's reading the newspaper again, calm, normal. but there's an invisible circle around him that no one dares to cross. Besides her, she comes out into the room. She places dessert in front of him. Today, it's a small pie with apples and caramel. Lee looks at the plate, then at her. "You're tired today," he says. Tamika is surprised. She didn't think it would be noticeable. "Lots of dishes," she replies. "You don't need to wash the dishes. It is necessary. It is my job." Lee cuts a piece of pie. He chews slowly. The work may be different. Tamika is silent. Her room is empty, and there's cold rice in the fridge. She turns off the water, takes off her gloves, walks out the back door into the street. The evening is warm. The city hums somewhere in the distance. Tamika walks to the bus stop, counting her steps. 10, 20, 30. She sees him right away. Lee is standing by a long black car. Not the kind of car ordinary people drive. Expensive, shiny, and even in the dark, you can tell it costs a fortune. He leans against the door and looks at her, waiting. Tamika stops. There are about 20 meters between them. She thinks about walking past, pretending she didn't notice, but her legs won't move. Lee opens the front door of the car. "Get in. I'll take you home." It's not a question, but it's not an order either. Simply an offer that's hard to refuse. Tamika looks at the empty bus stop. There's no bus in sight. It's a 40-minute walk home. She's tired. Her legs are buzzing. She approaches the car and sits down. The inside smells of leather and something fresh, like after rain. Tamika has never sat in a car like this. She feels like a stranger on this smooth seat in her old jacket. Lee gets behind the wheel, closes the door. The silence becomes thick. "Where to?" he asks. She gives the address. The neighborhood where people who wash dishes and clean offices live. Lee nods, starts the car. Music plays softly from the speakers. Instrumental, without lyrics. Tamika doesn't know such melodies. She looks out the window at the passing lights. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees his hands on the steering wheel. Large, calm, without nerves, without unnecessary movements. The hands of a man accustomed to driving. And not just a car. She thinks she should be afraid. Sitting in a car with a stranger late at night. With a man everyone fears. With a man they whisper about in the kitchen. But she's not afraid. At all. For the first time in a long time, she feels calm. Next to him. In this silence. With this music. As if she's safe. As if nothing bad can happen. She looks at his profile. Lit by the streetlights, he seems softer than during the day. More ordinary. "Thank you," she says quietly. Lee turns his head for a second. "My pleasure." They continue driving in silence, and this silence is better than any conversation. The car stops in front of an old building with peeling paint. Tamika lives on the 3rd floor, in a room rented from an elderly couple. She doesn't come out right away. She sits and looks ahead through the glass. Lee is not rushing either. He is waiting. "Why are you here?" Tamika asks. "Today. You were waiting for me." Lee is silent for a long time. So long that she thinks he won't answer. "I value peace," he says finally. "There's little of it in my life. But with you, it's calm." Tamika turns to him, looks into his eyes. In the darkness, they seem simply dark, without color. "Your job involves risk," she says. She doesn't ask. She asserts. Lee is not surprised. "Yes. Is that why everyone is afraid?" "That's why." He doesn't elaborate. He doesn't give details. But this short yes is enough. Tamika understands that this man lives in a world where peace is a luxury, where you can't relax, you can't trust. You can't just sit in a restaurant and read the newspaper, except for those moments when he's sitting in her kitchen, at his table, and dessert is waiting for her. "I'm glad you find peace here," Tamika says. She opens the door. She goes out. She closes it behind her. The car stands for another minute. Then it smoothly drives away and disappears into the darkness. Tamika stands at the entrance and watches them go. She clutches the key in her hand. Her head is empty. Her chest is warm. She doesn't know what it is, but she knows that tomorrow she will see him again, at the table by the window. On Monday, everything changes. Tamika arrives at work and sees a new man in the kitchen. A young Korean man wearing a brand new white jacket. He stands at the pastry counter, laying out his tools. Expensive, shiny, unfamiliar. The chef approaches Tamika. He doesn't make eye contact. "This is a new pastry chef," he says. "Experienced, from an expensive hotel. You go back to the sink." Tamika looks at him, then at the new pastry chef. He doesn't even turn in her direction. "Why?" she asks. "That's what management decided. You handled it well, but we need a professional." She doesn't believe it. Management doesn't decide anything without the manager. And the manager knows that Elle is there for her, but she remains silent. She nods. She goes into the utility room, changes into a blue uniform. She puts on an apron. She stands at the sink. Hot water pours onto her hands, plate after plate. Tamika washes the dishes and looks out the small window. Lee arrives at 12. He sits down at his table. They bring him a menu. He doesn't open it. He waits. The waiter approaches. Lee says a few words. The waiter turns pale. He runs to the kitchen. 10 minutes later, dessert is placed in front of Elle from the new pastry chef. Beautiful, complex, with mirror-like glaze and berries. Lee looks at the plate, doesn't touch it. He calls the waiter. "That's not it," he says. "Mr. Lee, this is our new dessert, the best pastry chef." I said, "That's not it." The voice is calm, but the waiter is trembling. He takes the plate, carries it to the kitchen. Tamika sees everything through the window. She sees the waiter whispering to the chef. She sees the chef looking at her. She sees the new pastry chef blush and start cooking again. Second dessert. Third. Lee doesn't touch any of them. The room is quiet. The other guests have left. Only Elle remains. He sits at an empty table and waits. The manager runs out into the room. Bows. Says something. Lee listens, then answers. The manager turns so pale he's whiter than his shirt. He returns to the kitchen. He approaches Tamika. "Go," he says quietly. "Get it ready for him. Quickly!" Tamika turns off the water. She wipes her hands. She goes to the pastry counter. The new pastry chef looks at her with hatred, but remains silent. She cooks quickly. A simple pear pie, sliced persimmon, a drop of honey. She takes it out herself. She places it in front of Elle. He takes a fork, cuts off a piece, chews, looks at her. "Thank you, Tamika." And only then does he begin to eat. The next day, the manager calls Tamika into his office. "Sit down," he says. For the first time, he offers to sit down. Tamika sits down, looks at him. "Mr.?" Elle set a condition, the manager says. His voice trembles. "If you don't cook, he'll stop coming." Tamika is silent. "Do you understand what this means? If he leaves, others will follow him. Important people. We will lose half our revenue. I will lose my job. The head chef will lose his job. Everyone will lose their job. I didn't ask him about it. I know, but it's a fact. You're part of this restaurant now. An important part." The manager looks at her. "You'll only be making desserts, only for guests, but primarily for him. This is your job now. Good pay, a separate area, no dishes." Tamika looks out the window. Outside is a gray city. People are rushing about their business. "What if I refuse?" The manager sighs. "Then I'll look for another job, and you too, and 20 other people." Tamika closes her eyes. She feels the noose tightening. Not angry, not scary. Just a noose. Out of concern, out of fear of other people, out of his attention. She nods. "Okay, I'll cook." Tamika is returned to the sweet kitchen. The new pastry chef leaves for another restaurant without even saying goodbye. She's given a separate table, new bowls and good knives. She prepares desserts for all the guests. But for Elle, separately, always separately. And she understands that her life now depends on this man's decisions, on whether he wants to come tomorrow, on whether he likes today's pie, on the mood in which he sits at his table. It's scary, but it's also attractive, because when she cooks for him, she feels needed, truly needed, not like a dishwasher who can be replaced in a day, but like a person without whom someone's life becomes empty. One evening, after closing, Lee is waiting for her at the back door. "This is for you," he says. He hands over a small box. Not velvet, not expensive, just plain cardboard. Tamika opens it. Inside is a spoon. The wooden handle is smooth and comfortable. The metal part is slightly curved, unlike regular spoons. "I was on a business trip," says Lee. "I saw this and thought of you. For a tasting, to try creams, sauces." Tamika holds the spoon in her hands. Warm wood, cool metal. A simple thing, but she understands how much is hidden within it. He thought about her. In another city, amidst business and meetings, he saw the spoon and thought of her. "Thank you," she says quietly. Lee nods. "Good night, Tamika." He leaves, and she stands there, looking at the spoon, and she feels warmth spreading inside her, the same warmth she puts into her pies. Now Tamika cooks differently. Before, she simply remembered her grandmother. She simply did what she was used to. Now she thinks about him. In the morning, when she kneads dough, she imagines what his face will be like today, tired or calm. When she cuts fruit, she wonders whether he wants something tart or sweet. She starts experimenting. Not much, just simple recipes. But every day she changes something. A little cinnamon, a drop of lemon, a different kind of apple. And he always understands. He sits down at the table. He tries it out. He looks at her. And she sees in his eyes what he feels, that he hears her message. When she's sad, he eats slowly. When he's angry, he finishes quickly and asks for more. When she's happy, he smiles. Just a little, just the corners of his lips. But she sees it. They speak without words. Through the plate, through the taste, through the warmth she puts into the dough. One evening, when the restaurant is empty and Elle is sitting at his table with an empty plate, he says, "I don't know how you do it." Tamika stands nearby, leaning against the wall. "What exactly?" "Warmth. There's so much warmth in your desserts. I've never tasted anything like it. In any restaurant, in any country." She is silent. "Before I just ate, to be full, to not think about hunger. But now," he trails off, choosing his words, "now I wait. Every day I wait for the evening to come here and eat what you've cooked. I can't imagine my day without it." Tamika looks at him, at his broad shoulders and his light jacket, at his calm hands folded on the table, at his face, which seems so ordinary, yet so important to her. "What if I leave?" she asks quietly. "What if I'm not here?" Lee looks up at her. "Don't leave." It's not an order, it's a request. Quiet, almost inaudible. But Tamika hears it. She doesn't answer. She just stands there in the silence of the empty room. That night, Tamika can't sleep. She lies on the narrow bed in her small room and stares at the ceiling. Her neighbor snores through the wall. Dogs bark outside. An ordinary evening in her ordinary life. But inside, everything is unusual. She understands that she's waiting for his arrival. Not the way one waits for a paycheck or a day off, but differently, deeper. In the morning, when she wakes up, her first thought is, will he come today? During the day, while she kneads dough, she wonders, what will he be like today? In the evening, when he sits down at the table, everything inside her freezes and then slowly thaws. This is scary. She shouldn't feel this way. He's a guest. She's the one who cooks. He's the important man everyone's afraid of. She's the lucky dishwasher. But feelings don't ask permission. Tamika stands by the window in her room, looking out at the city at night. Somewhere out there, in the big house, Elle is sleeping, or not sleeping, or deciding someone's fate. And she stands here and thinks about him. She understands that she has crossed some line, a thin, invisible one beyond which there is no return. Before, she cooked for him because that's how it happened, because he asked, because she was afraid for others. Now she cooks for him because she wants to see him eat, how he closes his eyes in pleasure, how he looks at her afterwards. It's not just a job, it's not just an addiction, it's something else, something for which there is no name. Tamika turns away from the window, lies down on the bed, closes her eyes. He'll come tomorrow. She'll make him a new dessert, and she'll stand by the door again, watching him eat. She's afraid of it, but she can't stop, because in his gaze, when he looks at her, she sees something she has never seen in her life, something she has never had. She sees that she is needed, for real, not for work, not for convenience, but just like that, for him. And it's worth any fear. Tamika stands at the pastry counter, looking at the empty bowl. She's already cleared everything away, dried everything, put everything back in its place. The restaurant closed 2 hours ago. Everyone's gone. Besides him, Lee sits at his table in the dining room. The light is on only above him. The rest of the room is in darkness. He doesn't read or look at his phone. He simply sits and looks toward the kitchen, waiting. Tamika knows he's not waiting for dessert. That was eaten long ago. He's waiting for her to come out, for them to ride through the night city in silence again, for her to sit next to him, the music playing softly, and there'll be no need to say anything. She takes off her apron, adjusts her bun, walks out into the hall. Lee rises. It's a politeness she didn't expect. In this world where everyone bows to him, he stands when she approaches. "Ready?" he asks. Yes. They exit through the main entrance. A black car is parked by the door, though Tamika didn't see him park it. Someone must have driven it. He probably has people who do this kind of thing. She sits down. A familiar movement. Leather seat, clean smell, quiet music. Lee gets behind the wheel and drives out onto the empty night road. They are silent. Tamika looks out the window. The lights of restaurants, offices, expensive houses. A city where she is a stranger. But now, next to him, she doesn't feel like a stranger. "You're tired today," says Elle. "This is not a question." "A little. Because of me." Tamika turns to him. "No, because of work." Lots of guests. Lee nods, but it's clear from his face that he doesn't believe her. I noticed, he says. You cooked for others today. There was a special dessert for me, but the rest, you're tired of them. Tamika is silent. He's right. She really does get tired of the crowd, the noise, the strangers' faces, but when he sits in the audience, the fatigue goes away. I want to offer you something, says Elle. Tamika tenses. Her insides clench. She's afraid he'll offer her a job again, or money, or something that will make their relationship wrong. Don't be afraid, Elle says, as if reading my mind. It's not about work. And what? Relaxation. Day off. Closed restaurant. Just us. You cook what you want. I just sit and watch. No other guests. No rush. Tamika looks at him. In the dim light of the car, his face seems softer. For what? Lee is silent for a long time. Then he says, to see how you cook when you're not in a rush. When you do it for yourself, for pleasure. She thinks about his words. About how he wants to see the real her. Not the one who works under pressure, but the one who simply loves kneading dough and cutting fruit. Okay, she says quietly. The car stops in front of her house. Tamika gets out. Lee gets out too. She stands by the car, looking at it. Good night, Tamika. Good night. She walks toward the entrance. She feels his gaze on her back. At the door, she turns around. He's still standing there, a white spot in the darkness. She goes inside, climbs the stairs, enters the room, sits down on the bed, and sits motionless for a long time. There's a warmth in my chest. And fear. The day off comes in 3 days. The restaurant is closed to everyone. There's a sign on the door that says, private event. Tamika arrives at 10 in the morning. Lee is already there. He's sitting at his table, dressed casually. No jacket, just a simple shirt. The kitchen is ready. The ingredients she ordered yesterday. Fruit, flour, butter, eggs. The best they can find. Go ahead, says Elle. I won't interfere. Tamika begins. She kneads the dough. She kneads it for a long time, with pleasure, feeling it become smooth and warm under her hands. She cuts the fruit into thin slices. She whips the cream by hand, not with a mixer, because that's how her grandmother taught her. Lee sits in the hall and watches, without looking away. But his gaze is not heavy, not oppressive, warm. Sometimes she looks up and sees his eyes, and smiles, without even noticing. She's making 3 desserts, not because she has to, but because she wants to try different things. A small pie with apples and cinnamon, airy cream with berries, warm buns with honey, brings everything out at once and places it in front of him. Try it, she says. Tell me what you feel. Lee tries the first one, apple pie, chews slowly, closes his eyes. Home, he says. A place I've never been. Second, cream with berries. Lightness, as if I could fly. Third, buns with honey. Morning, early morning, when everyone is asleep, and you are alone, and you feel good. Tamika looks at him and feels her eyes sting. She hasn't cried in years, but now she wants to. You understand, she whispers. You understand everything. Lee opens his eyes, looks at her. You taught me that. I didn't know how before. I just ate, and now I feel it. She sits down opposite him, at his table, for the first time. Tell me, she asks. Tell me about yourself. Don't be afraid. Lee is silent, for a long time. Then he begins to speak, about a childhood without the scent of home, about a father he doesn't remember, about a mother who was always busy, about how he ended up in this world, not by choice, but by necessity, about how peace is something he never had, before her. Tamika listens. She doesn't interrupt. She just sits next to you and listens. When he finishes, the room is quiet, only the hum of the refrigerators. I'll tell you too, says Tamika. And she talks, about the grandmother who raised her, about the mother who left when she was 10, about moving, about odd jobs, about how she ended up here, about the loneliness she got used to and stopped noticing. They talk for hours. Desserts are getting cold on the table. The coffee is long gone. It's getting dark outside. Lee looks at his watch, surprised. It's 6 in the evening. We've been talking for 6 hours. Tamika laughs, for the first time in a long time. Laughs easily, freely. I'm not tired. Me too. They look at each other, and there's no longer a table between them, no distance. There's only understanding, quiet, deep, genuine. Lee stands up, walks over to her, extends his hand. May I? He asks. Tamika takes his hand and stands up. They stand next to each other. In the empty hall of an expensive restaurant, the lights come on outside the window. I don't know what this is, Elle says quietly. but I don't want it to end. Tamika looks up at him. She's tall, but he's taller. I don't know either, but I'm afraid of losing. You won't lose it. He says it so simply, so confidently that she believes it. They stand silently, hand in hand, warmth to warmth, and nothing more is needed. A month passes. Tamika no longer counts the days. She simply lives. She wakes up in the morning, drinks coffee, and goes to work. Lee comes to the restaurant every day. Sometimes during the day, sometimes in the evening. Sometimes they leave together after closing. Sometimes he just sits in the restaurant and watches her cook. No one whispers in the kitchen anymore. Everyone's gotten used to it. Tamika isn't just a lucky dishwasher anymore. She's the one who shouldn't be touched, the one the manager smiles at and the chef consults on the menu. But Tamika herself doesn't feel important. She feels needed, only by one person. On Friday evening, when the restaurant closes, Lee doesn't leave. He sits at the table and waits for Tamika to finish cleaning the kitchen. She washes her bowls, wipes down the counter, and sets out the knives. As she walks out into the hall, Lee looks at her and says, I want to invite you to one place. Tamika is surprised. They're always either at a restaurant, or in the car, or at her house. Nowhere else. Where? Let's just ride, out of town. It's quiet there. She looks at his face. It's calm, but there's something new in his eyes. Either excitement or hope. Okay, she says. They get out. A black car is waiting at the door. Lee opens the door for her and gets behind the wheel. They drive out of the city. Outside the window, the high-rises, billboards, and crowds of people disappear. Fields, small houses, and trees appear. Tamika hasn't been out of town in a long time. It's always work, then the room, then more work. She looks out the window and feels a release inside. The heaviness that was always there is disappearing somewhere. Lee drives confidently, but slowly. He's not in a hurry. An hour later, they stop at a small house. Not new, but well kept. There are trees all around, silence, only birds. This is mine, says Lee. The place where I rest. Nobody knows. They step outside. The air is fresh, smelling of grass and something blooming. Tamika takes a deep breath and closes her eyes. It's beautiful, she says. Lee is standing next to her, looking at her. Do you want to see inside? She nods. The house is small but cozy inside. Simple furniture, a fireplace, a kitchen with a wooden table. Nothing expensive, nothing ostentatious. Tamika is surprised. She thought he lived in a palace. Here I can be myself, says Lee. Not someone they're afraid of, just myself. Tamika walks through the rooms, touching things. Books on the shelf, a warm blanket on the sofa, framed photographs. One shows an elderly woman with a kind face. This is my grandmother, Elle says from behind me. The only person who ever loved me just like that. Tamika looks at the photo, then at him. Is she dead? Yes, a long time ago. After her, I bought this house, to remember what warmth was. Tamika comes close to him, looks into his eyes. You are not alone, she says quietly. I'm here. Lee is silent. Something changes in his eyes. The protection he always wore is becoming thinner. I know, he replies. That's why I brought you here. They stand in the silence of the small house. It's getting dark outside. It's warm inside. Would you like me to cook dinner? Tamika asks. Is there a kitchen here? Lee smiles, a rare smile that changes his entire face. Yes, and groceries. I bought them this morning, just in case. Tamika goes to the kitchen. She opens the refrigerator. There's everything. Vegetables, eggs, butter, even flour. She looks at the food and feels a warmth spreading inside her. He's prepared. He wanted her to cook, for him. She begins. She chops vegetables, beats eggs, kneads dough. Lee sits down at the wooden table and watches, without looking away. Just like that time, in the restaurant, when she cooked just for him. But now everything is different. Now they are not in a restaurant. Now they are in his house, in a place where he does not allow anyone. Tamika prepares a simple meal. An omelet with vegetables, homemade bread, and a salad. She sets it on the table. Dinner is ready. Lee tries it. He eats slowly, savoring it. Tamika sits opposite and eats too, silently. But the silence doesn't weigh him down. Thank you, Elle says when the plates are empty. This is the best dinner of my life. You say that every time, because it's true every time. He gets up and goes to the fireplace. He lights the fire. Tamika washes the dishes, watching the flames. Then he sits down on the sofa by the fireplace. Lee sits down next to him. They look at the fire, close, shoulder to shoulder. I never thought I'd be sitting like this with someone, Elle says quietly. I've always been alone, even when there are people around. Why? I didn't trust him. I was afraid they would use me, that they would see weakness and kill me. Tamika turns to him. Do you trust me? Lee looks at her. For a long time. A very long time. More than anyone else. Tamika feels her heart beat faster. She doesn't know what to do with these words. They're too big, too important. I trust you too, she says. Although I should be afraid. Why should they? Because everyone is afraid. Lee takes her hand, quietly, carefully. Don't be afraid. I will never do anything bad to you. They sit for a long time, hand in hand. The fire burns. It's night outside. Tamika, Elle says, I want you to know. What? I don't know what it's called, what's between us, but it's the only thing I want to wake up for in the morning. Tamika is silent. Everything inside her is shaking. Me too, she whispers. He turns to her, looks into her eyes, leans closer. Can? She doesn't respond with words. She just closes her eyes. His lips touch hers, quietly, softly, as if he's afraid to scare her away. Tamika feels warmth, tenderness, something she's never felt before. The kiss lasts a second, or an eternity. She doesn't know. When they pull away, Lee looks at her as if he's seeing her for the first time, as if she's a miracle. I was expecting this, he says. I didn't know it myself, but I was expecting it. Me too. They sit in silence again, hand in hand. The fire burns out. Late at night, Elle drives her home. He stands by the car, watching her enter the building. Tamika turns around at the door. He's still there. She smiles and goes inside. The room is dark. She lies down on the bed and looks at the ceiling. Her lips remember his kiss. Her hands remember his warmth. She doesn't know what will happen tomorrow. She doesn't know if this is right. She doesn't know how it will end. But today she feels good. Really good. For the first time in my life. The next morning, Tamika wakes up early. The sun is shining through the window. The birds are singing. She gets up, washes, and gets dressed. She has to go to work by 12, but she can't sit still at home. She goes outside and sees a black car at the entrance. Lee stands leaning against the door. He's wearing simple clothes, not a suit. He's holding a paper bag. Good morning, he says. You've been here? Since the morning? I brought breakfast. I didn't know what you liked, so I brought a variety. Tamika comes over. She looks into the bag. There are croissants, fruit, juice, and coffee in a thermos. Why? She asks. I wanted to see you. Right away. As soon as I woke up. She looks at him, at his eyes, in which there is no cold, only warmth. I wanted to see you too, she admits. Lee smiles and extends his hand. Let's go have breakfast. There's a park nearby. They walk to a small park across the street. They sit on a bench. They eat croissants and drink coffee. Children run around. Old people read newspapers. And the world goes on as usual. And no one looks at them. No one is afraid. No one whispers. They're just two people, a man and a woman, having breakfast in the park. I want it to always be like this, says Elle. Tamika looks at him. Or maybe. I don't know, but I'll try. She rests her head on his shoulder, closes her eyes. The sun warms her face. His warmth is next to her. And that's enough. A week passes like one day. Tamika wakes up, goes to work, makes desserts, and sees Elle in the dining room. In the evening, they go away together. Sometimes to his house outside the city. Sometimes they just drive along the night streets. Sometimes they sit in the car outside her door and talk until the morning. She tells him about her grandmother, about her childhood, about how she dreamed of opening a small bakery. He talks about his work, a little, in snatches, but enough for her to understand. It's a tough world, where you can't relax for a minute. Where I work, he says one evening, people don't live long. Or they live, but they're dead inside. And you? Tamika asks. Are you alive? Lee looks at her for a long time. Then he touches her face with his hand. With you, yes. Without you, I don't know. She takes his hand and kisses his palm. Just like that, because she wants to. He freezes. He looks at her with surprise. Nobody ever, he begins, and falls silent. What? No one kissed my hand. Mother didn't kiss it. No one. Tamika feels her heart clench. She imagines this boy who grew up without affection. Then the man everyone fears and no one loves for free. Now it will be, she says. I will. Lee turns to the window. Silence. But Tamika sees his hand shaking. They sit in the car outside her house until 3 in the morning. They're just silent. They hold hands. They look at the stars, barely visible in the city sky. When she enters the building, he watches her. As always, she knows she will stand until the light comes on in her window. She lights up. She goes to the window. She waves. The car stands for another minute. Then it drives away. On Thursday, something happens that Tamika was afraid all last week. She leaves the restaurant after closing. Lee didn't show up today, for the first time in a long time. He sent a message. Business. Get some rest. See you tomorrow. Tamika walks to the bus stop. Her legs are aching. Her back is sore. She's thinking about making him a new dessert tomorrow, something light to relieve his fatigue. A black car pulls up next to her, but not the one she's used to. Different, older, more ordinary. Two sets get out of his car. They're wearing dark suits. Their faces are ordinary, unremarkable, the kind that get lost in the crowd. Tamika, one asks. She stops. Yes, we apologize for disturbing you. We would like to talk. The voice is polite, too polite. Tamika feels her insides go cold. About what? About our mutual friend. Lee, you know him. I make desserts for him. At the restaurant. The men exchange glances. We know. We don't want to talk about desserts. Will you sit down? Tamika looks at the car. She can't get in. Anyone who watches movies knows that. But she sees there's no choice. They won't leave. She gets into the back seat. The men get into the front. The engine is running. We know you're close, says the one on the left. Lee rarely lets people close. You're special. Tamika is silent. We don't wish you harm. On the contrary, we want to help. Help with what? Lee is in danger, very dangerous. The people he works with are unhappy. They think he's gone soft. Tamika clenches her fists. Everything inside her is shaking. I don't understand. He stopped being tough. He leaves the restaurant early. He doesn't want to participate in things that used to be normal. It's all because of you. I didn't ask him to change. We know. But it's a fact. If he doesn't return to the game, he'll be removed. The word remove hangs in the air. Tamika knows what it means. In this world, it means one thing. What should I do? She asks quietly. Go away. Disappear. Tell him you're going home to America. He'll suffer, but he'll live. And in 6 months, he'll forget. Tamika looks out the window. Cars drive by. People walk by. Ordinary life, where there's no room for such conversations. What if I don't leave? The man on the left sighs. Then maybe we'll talk differently, not with you, with him. The outcome will be the same, but more painful. The threat is clear. They don't need her. They need him, the old, tough, dangerous one. And she makes him soft. Give me time, Tamika says. A week, 2 days. Then we'll decide for you. She gets out of the car. Her legs don't obey her. She walks to the entrance, not feeling the ground beneath her feet. At home, she sits on the floor by the door and sits there for an hour. She doesn't cry. She just stares into space. Utre receives a message from Elle. I miss you. I'll be there tonight. Cook something special. Tamika looks at the screen. Her fingers are shaking. She types back, absolutely, and goes to work. She cooks all day in a daze. Her hands are busy, but her mind is elsewhere. She stares at the door and waits for him. Lee arrives at 6. He sits down at his table. He's tired, but he smiles at her from across the room. Tamika brings out dessert herself. Today, it's apple and caramel pie, his favorite. She places it in front of him. How are you? She asks quietly. It's fine. There were some problems, but I solved them. She looks at his face. He doesn't say what the problems are. He never does. But today she knows. Lee, she begins. He looks up. What? People spoke to me yesterday. From the car. Lee freezes. The piece of pie freezes on her fork. What people? 2 of them. In dark suits. They said you were in danger. Because of me. Lee slowly puts down her fork. Her face hardens. In front of her again is the man everyone fears. Not the one who kissed her hand in the car. What did they say exactly? That if I don't leave, you'll be removed. That you've gone soft. That it's because of me. Lee stands up. He looks out the window. His hands are clenched into fists. I won't allow it, he says quietly. Not to anyone. Lee, I'm afraid. Not for myself. For you. He turns to her, comes close, takes her by the shoulders. Listen to me. I will decide this. Tomorrow. No one will touch you. No one will touch me. I am not who I used to be, but I am still who they fear. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Lee looks into her eyes. Tamika, you are the only thing I want to live for. If you are gone, I don't care what they do to me. She feels tears welling up. She holds them back with all her might. I won't leave, she whispers. But don't you die either. I won't die. I promise. He hugs her. right in the restaurant hall, where the cameras are, where the waiters are, where everyone can see. He doesn't care. Her too. The next day, Elle does not come to the restaurant. Tamika waits. An hour, 2, 3, all day. No messages, no calls. She writes herself, "Where are you?" The answer comes an hour later. "I'm resolving the issue. Everything is fine. See you tomorrow." She clutches the phone, her heart pounding. In the evening, she doesn't go home. She sits on a bench near the restaurant and waits. Just waits without knowing why. A black car stops next to her. That one. Tamika jumps up. Elle gets out of the car, alone, whole, tired but alive. She runs to him and hugs him as tightly as she can. "Quiet," he says. "It's over." "What ended?" "I talked to the people. I explained that if they touch you, I will destroy their business. Completely. And I know how to do that." "And they agreed?" Lee grins. "They had no choice. I'm still in charge. They just forgot." Tamika looks at him. There's weariness in her eyes, but strength within. The same one that made everyone afraid. "You took a risk," she says. "We can't risk you. The others can." He takes her hand. "Let's go home. I'm tired." "To your house?" "In ours, if you want." Tamika looks at him, then at the car, then at the restaurant where she worked for so many years. "I want to," she says. They get into the car. Lee drives slowly, carefully. Outside the window, the city at night. "Tamika," he says, "I want you to move in with me, to a house outside the city. It's safe there. It's quiet. And work? You will cook for me, and for yourself. You can open a bakery if you want. I will help." She looks at him. Does she believe? Yes. Is she afraid? A little. Does she want? More than anything. Yes, she says. "I agree." Lee smiles. For real. The way only happy people smile. They drive on. It's dark and quiet outside the city. Only the stars are overhead. Tamika lays her head on his shoulder, closes her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she feels like she's at home.